SARS virus a few years ago. So there are a lot of things we don't know about this virus because it is a novel virus. And some of it, people are just guessing. We don't know for sure if you can get reinfected. Can you get it twice? How long are you contagious? And we know that coronaviruses generally do form immunity, but we don't know how long. We don't know if it's going to be indefinite or you need to get 2 infections before you're permanently immune. Some things that we do know, we know that there's no cure. So Remdesivir is a medication, it's an antivirus medicine that has been helpful with AIDS and is now showing a lot of promise with the coronavirus. So far, it's only been given to very sick COVID patients. And so we don't know if we could use it perhaps for prevention or in the early stages. We know that there is no vaccine, and we know that we probably will not have a vaccine until next year. There is no seasonality that we know of. The idea that, oh, it's going to get hot and then the virus will disappear. If that's the case, why do they have COVID in India? There's no latency. Latency is like a herpes virus. The herpes family of viruses create latency, like the herpes, genital herpes, chickenpox, herpes shingles. You get infected, but they stay in your body and then they resurge, they come out again whenever you get stressed or whatever other factors causes them to come out. So we know that the coronaviruses do not do this. Actually, the common cold is one of the coronaviruses. So we do also know that people shed the virus in their stool for up to a month after they've had the infection. Does this mean that they continue to be contagious? We don't know. But we do know, we don't know when the pandemic will end, but we do know that this virus is an equal opportunity virus. Anyone, anywhere, any age can get COVID. So misinformation and disinformation would have you believing that you need to be very elderly or you need to have underlying health conditions in order to die from COVID, or maybe it doesn't affect children. These are all misinformation. Anyone can get COVID. It's equal opportunity. Everyone can get infected. That doesn't mean that everyone will die from it. I'm going to talk about the droplet size. So the droplet size is important. When somebody sneezes and you see the mucus come out of their mouth and nose, those are very large droplets. And those large droplets generally will fall down to the floor and stay there. The medium-sized droplets, on the other hand, hang around, they're in the air, but they don't last quite as long as the micro droplets. The micro droplets, the ones that you cannot see, actually become aerosolized and vaporized. But the problem with these is that someone who has the virus can actually pass it on to you just by exhaling and speaking with you. And so this is why a mask is important and helpful. The good news is the droplets don't seem to be able to go more than about 6 feet away. And that's why we have the social distancing. The incubation period is about 5 to 6 days. It has been as short as 3 and as long as 15. So what numbers do we really care about? There are a lot of numbers out there that the epidemiologists put out, and I think that the average person really doesn't need all those numbers. There are 2 numbers that I think you should focus on: the deaths per day in your area and the hospitalizations near you. The deaths per day will give you an idea of the trend. You can see if it's going down, it's going up. If you look at the hospitalizations near you,
started the meeting. I'm trying to copy the link to you, but it seems like it's all females. So hopefully.
Hospitalizations near you will give you an idea of what's going on in your area. There is something called a post-COVID syndrome. So the information out there implies that if you're sick, you're really sick for the first week, and then after 14 days, you go on your merry way and live happily ever after. That's not necessarily the case. A lot of people get a post-COVID syndrome, which means that after they recover from the COVID, the acute infection, they are sick for about a month afterwards. Let's talk about the ICU costs. There are things like the COVID toes and increased risk of stroke, blood clotting. These are actually true. But I'm going to rush through the clinical stuff and just tell you about the cost here. So the first day of ICU in the United States costs $10,794, which is equivalent to 8,800 pounds for the first day, or 50,000 rupees. That's if you're on the vent. If you're not on the vent, it cuts down to about $6,600. And then when you stay in the ICU, by the third day, you even out around $4,000 a day. If you're just admitted to the ordinary floor without going into the ICU, then it costs you about $1,500 a day. The average stay in the ICU in the United States is 14 days. In the United Kingdom, it is 16 days. If you don't need the ICU in the UK, it's about 8 days. The cost of a diagnostic test is less than $3. To make a ventilator costs $20,000 to $50,000. And a ventilator support requires trained personnel, bells, whistles, tubes, oxygen, and all kinds of other stuff. Is this really practical for the third world? I think not. Prevention is the key. The whole world is affected by the great virus world war. It's important to understand also that we may have another episode of lockdown, or even two. So you have to get your mind around that, because if they come and announce that we need to lock down again, don't let it take you down. So let's discuss how we become empowered to deal with all this, physically and mentally. But first, a quick word about prevention. You know this: masks, gloves, testing, hand washing, hand sanitizer. Put bleach in your toilet every few days and close the lid when you flush. I like all my patients to be on zinc, vitamin C, 2,000 milligrams, echinacea, and vitamin D every day during this COVID epidemic. The viral mix is a combination of herbs and vitamins that I give my patients whenever they're sick. Wellness: steam, sauna, deep breaths. Stay active, stay hydrated, and adequate sleep. Some people feel like they need to just rest and hang around, lounge on the couch. That's not good for your immunity. You have to keep things moving. And obviously, prevention community-wise is dependent upon containment and mitigation, which requires testing. The pandemic has shown us how interconnected we really are. Together, we may find the vaccine and wall off the virus. Divided, we may lose this great virus world war against the SARS. Let's talk about women and COVID. I call it the double X factor, and turns out it's pretty important. In the corporate world, we often bristle when people point out that we are women, and this is because we feel that there are overtones of inferiority or inadequacy. But now, as a group of women, we can be honest with each other and say, we really think we are superior. We know we are superior. Our minds work differently. And when we put our minds to something, watch out. Some world leaders have shown significant incompetence when dealing with a true disaster like the COVID-19 pandemic. But let's look at the ones that are doing really well. Countries that have handled the coronavirus very well: New Zealand, Taiwan, Germany, Finland, St. Martin. What do they have in common? They all have female leaders. Why have they done so well? I think it's because women can be decisive without ego. Jacinda Ardern is pregnant, and she's the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And she's the very first world leader ever to be pregnant in office. She pointed out early on, I'm pregnant, I'm not incapacitated. But her country has been the most successful at curtailing the COVID virus efficiently, decisively. And so hundreds of lives have been saved. So much for the notion that women are distracted by womanly issues and being pregnant. Right now, some women are working from home, they're doing housework, they're taking care of the kids, they're doing the homeschooling, and they're juggling all kinds of things. And they may even have elderly parents that they are caretaking, juggling several hats at one time. How many men do you think can do that? Well, let's talk about well-being. Self-care has never been more important. Focus on what we can do and worry less about what is outside our control. You remember the good old serenity prayer? Grant me the serenity to know what I need to accept and what I can change. Talking about wellness, I want to break it down to physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. I call these pies. So physical well-being, quite frankly, has taken a beating during this pandemic, even for people who have tried to stay active. How has your physical health been impacted by sitting at home, sitting on the computer, not able to go to the doctor or the gym, all the yoga, dance classes, all canceled, and not walking the way you normally would in a big city or running around the office when you're working? You also can't get elective procedures done, so on and so forth. Sleep is critical. If you don't have enough sleep, if you don't get enough sleep, that's a separate talk that I could certainly give. But a tip, sleep in a dark room. The main point here, as far as the physical wellness, is that you need to acknowledge the areas for improvement and change them. Let's talk about intellectual well-being. Okay, so you're working from home, and the deal is you work from 9 to 5. But at 5 o'clock, you switch off. Don't drag it out. And rest of the time, you need to read, relax, write your memoirs, do crosswords, quizzes, things that are intellectually stimulating. And here's a tip. Social media is not considered intellectual stimulating activity. Emotional. I'm going to spend quite a bit on emotional, a bit of time on emotional, because that is what it's going to take to get us through. And the emotional well-being has also taken a huge beating in this pandemic. Healthcare professionals, as well as the general public, are going through the whole gamut of emotions. Anxiety. When Donald Trump became president in this country 3.5 years ago, I had a lot of patients coming to my office with anxiety and depression. I mean, it was amazing how it really took the tenure of the country down. And there started a big divide, obviously, between the two parties, which has never really healed. But people sort of became used to the idea and things were evening out. And then here came COVID. And COVID has tipped some people over. We have had a large social reaction to a political process, and the infodemic makes it worse. People are anxious about their jobs, they worry about their retirement, they worry about their spouse's income, and everything else in between. I do not believe that there is one person in the world who does not have some increased anxiety over this pandemic. Fear. People are naturally afraid of getting sick and dying or losing loved ones. But doctors aren't any less stressed because they understand the science. In fact, in some ways, they are more stressed because they know exactly what can happen if they get sick. The medical community has a lot of fear. They fear for themselves, they fear for their families, they fear for their colleagues. On the other hand, an unrealistic lack of fear can increase the spread. We have folks who are dancing around on the beach. Some people think this is a big hoax. But I can tell you from the doctor's chat lines, I read things like, I'm dealing with this one day at a time. It's a struggle every single day. A prominent doctor and professor at a medical school in New York committed suicide this month. He should have reached out. I believe this is where community is very important. A scientist from the UK wrote, "We only have gloves and a lab coat. I hope COVID cannot be transmitted by blood." Did they lie to us? Do you hear the doubt and suspicion? Guilt. Yesterday, I read that women doctors and scientists working behind the scenes feel very guilty because they're not on the front line. Some people feel guilty that they can work when others can't. Some people are guilty because they can stand the economic downturn when others are losing the shirts off their backs. Some people worry that they can eat and others can't. There's a lot of anger. Nursing is not martyrdom. We were not prepared for this, wrote one nurse. Another one admitted, "I am so stressed, I have chest pain all the time, I have PTSD, anxiety, depression, nightmares, I'm just having a hard time." There was a 40-year-old nurse practitioner with 2 kids in New York, kids aged 5 and 6. She said, "I'm exhausted, afraid, overworked, struggling with the kids' homework. Should I emigrate to New Zealand?" Loneliness. Well, it's no surprise that according to the experts, social distancing makes the heart grow lonelier. Human beings are social beings, and we crave social interaction to give meaning to our lives. We have to find ways to interact at all ages, including the elderly who have even more social isolation, depression, and anxiety. Well, ladies, you heard it here first. My prediction is that next year there will be an epidemic of post-traumatic stress disorder. So let's talk to social well-being. Why is solitary confinement so hard in jail? It's because we need other people to mirror our lives. So we must behave socially, well-functioned and supportive of others. Share laughs and memories. Use the old art of the telephone rather than always texting and emailing. Talk to distant friends, Skype, Zoom. And if you must write an email, think about writing an old-fashioned letter. What can you do? Well, order flows from preparation. Stop the bad news, stop watching, watch romantic films, review old photo albums and celebrations. Share anxieties and concerns with others. Be calm, not angry. Don't get angry about the small stuff. And forget that stiff upper lip. Follow the forgive and forget strategies to be emotionally healthy towards your colleagues, your friends, your family, and even yourself. But first, be grateful because life is an invaluable gift and you have it when others don't. We have all lost something. There is a collective anxiety. Who is bold enough to scream with me right now? You're all on mute, so it doesn't matter. So let's just have a 10-minute scream like no one's watching. See, you feel better already. So let's talk about the losses because we do have some losses. Some people's losses are quite direct. They have literally lost people. People have died. They know people who have died. But we've all lost the life we had before, like going to the movies, going to dinner. And we've also lost control of some of the things in our lives, which is very unsettling. And unclear messages add to the anxiety. There's also more domestic abuse because of confinement. This is another form of loss of control. In some countries, the pharmacists have a code word, so that if a woman is being abused and she's in danger, she can go to the pharmacy and say the code word and he will know that she needs help. People are worried about their loss of retirement savings. The stock market has crashed. Financial loss, graduate students that have been prepared to start a new job. The jobs have fizzled. The job market is down. Everybody is in limbo. Maybe you lost your health insurance. But can we retain our sense of humor? Some medical students have lost their motivation and zest for healing the sick even before they start their careers. And how about the gym? In everyday life, we all have our routines. Some people, the routine is going to the gym. And for some, it's a major source of social interaction with people huffing and puffing and sweating. How do you feel about going back to the gym now? Does it give you anxiety? So clearly we've lost some of the opportunities to interact and a lot more besides. We would love to be able to maintain our previous life, but that's easier said than done. How about travel? We travel for business, we travel for pleasure, but it's certainly been curtailed. And this is another way that we used to be interrelated. How is your travel going to be affected now, even when it becomes possible? Hands up anyone who is thinking about going on a cruise anytime soon. What have we gained? I'm going to let you think about that, and we can talk about it in the chat rooms. Are there any silver linings? If not, can we craft some? In my view, besides weight, Netflix, and a sense of humor, what else have we gained? We certainly gained a unique opportunity to reset. We hopefully have a new realization of our own stark mortality and that of those around us. Hopefully an appreciation of the simple pleasures. We have gained acquisition of technology skills like Zoom and online new friends. So we will strive for normalcy, but we must accept that as of now, it is pretty much gone. We must embrace a new normal. And what does that look like? Because in many ways we have been a slave to our prior routines, we now find that there's something missing. Can we gain something that will fill that void? What has changed? Speaking of change, who's an expert on Zoom now? Are we ever going to go back to shaking hands, hugging, networking? So many things have changed. Do we look at other people as a potential disease spreader? Has that changed forever? Or do we appreciate some people more now? Has joy gone? What about getting dressed for work and business after bumming it in sweats and casual wear for 3 months? Will you be comfortable having people come back into your home again? It's a lot to contemplate, but you do need to think about it. Let's talk about the reset. Everything's disrupted, our personal lives, social, professional lives, unemployment has jumped. But lockdown does not mean switch off. Be clear, this is a one-off opportunity in our lifetime to reset. You have been given a unique opportunity. Write down a plan and your thoughts whenever you think of them. Be creative and keep evolving. Now is a great time to ask, how do I want to live? What makes me happy? How do I contribute? Be patient. Enjoy being at home and celebrate your good health. Many are not as fortunate. Celebrate sweet memories, sweet moments with family and friends. Reevaluate your relationships. Understand and evaluate your purpose. Which relationships should you work on? Which ones should you give up? And which ones should you keep? Whoops, maybe COVID has shown you that you and your partner or your roommate are not as compatible as you previously thought. One day we will return to, and make no mistake about it, it will not be business as usual by any stretch of imagination. So put some thought into it now about how to maintain your well-being and particularly your immune system. Taking health, that needs to change. We need everyday health for extraordinary times. So we're going to talk about coping, make self-care a priority, and keep yourself in a positive place, positive space. As I said before, order flows from preparation. So how can we be better prepared? Like I said, put some thought into it. It will go better for you. Decide what brings you joy. write it down, and work towards it. Take ideas from whatever cosmos works for you. You can bring things into your space that make you happy, bring in plants, eat outside, savor your coffee, try yoga online. And food is really important. Reaching for snacks and junk food is not going to serve us well. Exercise 30 minutes a day, plenty of fruits, vegetables, and plenty of water. You know that. So value the simple pleasures. Maintain some level of activity. Some people need more physicality. They want to do boxing, running, to burn off negative stressors. Adjust as needed. Make real connections rather than superficial. Remember, there may be a recurrent need for lockdown. And ecotherapy is good for everyone. Maintain a positive mindset. My favorite affirmations when I do my 10-minute yoga in the morning, I am calm and I am centered. I am unique, and that is my greatest asset. I allow myself to be silly and playful. So let's summarize with some action items. Have patience, plan, be persistent, and be positive. 3/4 of the world is in social isolation. They've lost lives, lost jobs, lost friends, lost community. Focus on what you are more grateful now than before. Do not grieve for your life before COVID. Make a list and work towards it. Identify what you need to work on now so you can come back stronger. Map out your resources, people you like to talk to, things you like to do, places, music. Find people that have common interests. Reflect on and rebuild your network. Recharge your emotional batteries. Resourcefulness will be a game changer. Keep your health in perspective. Stay on top of existing health issues. Don't let them slide just because of the pandemic. And I want to leave you with the idea that part of your reset must be a focus on your immune system. Get 6 to 8 hours of sleep. If you're not getting that much, work on it. It's essential for your immune system. Make a telemed appointment with your doctor. Review your diet. Shoot for a healthy weight. Wear a mask. Do not be embarrassed. Now you know the facts. You understand why it's important. Do your part. Stay connected. Get good information. Don't believe everything that you hear. If something doesn't sound good, but it's not affecting you directly, let it go. Don't get bogged down in the weeds. If new information doesn't affect your life, put it in the category of small stuff. Don't sweat it. It's important to verify also before reacting. Motivation is critical. The less you do, I'm sure you've discovered this, the less you do, the less you want to do. If you commit to an activity on paper, you're more likely to get it done. That's part of your planning. Internations is a magnificent platform for social interaction, so use it. We want to continue learning and growing. We need new experiences that will help us excite and interest us, even if it's something as simple as walking on a trail. Deepen your connections. No superficial band-aid solutions. In summary, this too shall pass. We are all affected. Some changes are permanent, but there's no point grieving our old existence. Plan for the new one. It's a different world, and we will be ready for it. After all, as women, we nurture the world, and we are formidable. We have an invaluable gift, and that is life, something that hundreds of people don't have anymore. What will you do with yours? Remember, this is the ultimate reset. And now I'd like to learn from you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Nadu, that was a nice one. I actually learned one or two from you.
Give her a round of applause. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll open for questions, and if you'd be kind enough to just stand up, I can see you. There's about 28 of us, so just to make it as orderly as we can. And when I call on you, you can pose your question. Any questions? Oh, here we go. Irina, you have a question?
Well, I actually wanted to say thank you very much, girls, for organizing and useful. Doesn't matter today, 1 year, anyway, everything that has
We're
been
not
said.
hearing you very well. There seems to be a feedback.
And secondly, I agree
Can
with.
you get closer to the mic?
I don't have questions because I absolutely agree with everything. Everything, all suggestions.
So sorry, we can't hear you. Would you type it in the chat, please? Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Comment or question? Come on,
Yeah.
don't be shy.
Should I? Okay, I was wondering, please, how do we cope? Okay, how do business thrive in this pandemic? Like the situation now, especially I'm in Africa, currently in Africa. Yeah, but at times, you know, the business platforms.
Yolanda, we can't hear you.
That was
Oh, I'm talking, it's not me. It wasn't me who's talking. So
Chioma. But Chioma, I'm a business owner too, and I think what I hear you asking is how do we cope as business owners? Is that right?
Yes, please.
So there's a couple of things. Number one, we have to do better than our government did, right? We have to stay positive, and we have to make sure that, number one, our employees are safe and that we have a business to come back to. So you cannot just say, oh no, I'm not going to close my doors. I'm going to keep my business open. I don't care, because that will be the best way to destroy your business. So you also have to be creative and say, what parts of my business can I continue maybe online, right? Can I serve my customers online? Can I call them? And be positive. Don't look at all the things that you can't do. Figure out all the things that you can do. And you will find that later on, those things that you have added to your business will actually improve things for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nadu. Thank you so much.
Edu, I had 2 takeaways, and I don't know if you can expound on them some more. The first one is grieving, what has passed. So because I hear very often people say, they're anxious to return to a normal. And I think one of the most important points I got from this call, we need to accept normal as we knew it is gone, and we need to be open-minded going forward. And then the second thing was making a plan. So if you could speak a little bit more.
I'm sorry, can everybody be on mute because we can hardly hear? I think Yolanda, I think you need to be on mute.
but I'm sure I didn't say anything.
Thank you.
So you said, how do you make a plan?
How do you make a plan? And I think, and I'd love you before that to talk about the grieving for what used to be normal, because I hear a lot of people yearning for, when the lockdown is released, it's like, okay, thank goodness we can go back to the way it was, and I don't think it will be the same as it was.
Yeah, I think the first thing is to come to grips with the idea that the good old days are gone. As I said, nostalgia does not help you to move forward. Things are not going to be the same. That much we seem to have. We have to get our minds around, and the sooner we do, the sooner we make a plan to move forward. Because if you're always thinking about what happened, what you've lost, it pulls you back. Things are not going to be the same. They just aren't. And we have to accept that. And then the plan, everyone's plan is going to be a little different. And so that's why I put so many things out there. Because it's fine for me to say to someone, oh, you need to start doing yoga. But that may not be their cup of tea, right? But what we do know is that everyone needs a plan as to where we go from here. Not looking back at what happened, but how do we move forward? I think this is a great platform. The Internations, for example, I wouldn't have met any of you if not for this pandemic. So find like-minded people and try to keep up these conversations. I was going to suggest that maybe, Donna, we could have a once a month women's health chat if anyone's interested. You know, even if it's just 10 people that come together and always talk about things and move along. But as I tried to point out, even doctors are committing suicide because they cannot come to grips with where we are right now. So as a physician, one would think, okay, I'd rather die from the COVID while I'm helping things out as opposed to taking myself out. But everybody's different. And nobody was there to reach out and help him because, you know, he was a big professor. He was at the top. So I don't know if that's helpful.
You know, that's something I hadn't thought about, creating a plan for emerging from the pandemic. I mean, I've certainly tried to keep myself healthy and active and in a positive frame of mind, but a plan did not occur to me. But it makes perfect sense that you sit down and think about what your life might be like. And as you said, it's an opportunity to reset, taking stock of where you are today, where you want to be, so that when the gates open per se, you know, we're ready to go and we can be our best selves and in the best possible health that we can be. And Yolanda, go ahead. You're on mute.
Yolanda, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, sorry, let me put it back. Okay, I'm back. So my question, I was saying, I've got 2 questions and just a request, if you may, please. If you may send me particularly like your script that you've been reading, that would be helpful for me. And my question is, I'm in the hospitality industry and I'm currently been at home since. And in Africa, like in Cape Town, we have a different way of being quarantined or maybe locked down. We've been locked down since end of February, and we started stage 5 and now we're in stage 4. So I was just trying to creating myself to keep myself busy, and I'm currently cooking. I'll do cooking, so I'm currently cooking and deliver to my clients personally. Like obviously, I wear my mask, I wear my gloves, and I've got my sanitizer. I'll just make the measure. So my concern on your conversation was like, how dangerous or how I'm a bit exposed to that activity that I'm doing during the stage 4.
Okay, so first and foremost, let me just repeat something that I said. I believe that everyone right now should be taking 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C, 2,000 to 4,000 milligrams of vitamin D, echinacea or elderberry, right? In order to maximize your immune system, so that if you do get sick, it won't take you down. I have something that I call the senior script. And if you want to look on my website, you can see it. The senior script, I wrote it, I think last week. Every week I put out 2 or 3 emails for my patients. There was a man who was 104 who left the hospital the other day after COVID. So if you have a senior and you take care of them and you do what they need to do, you maintain the immune system, it does not mean that it needs to be a death sentence. And likewise, you, a relatively young person, should not have to think about, oh, I'm gonna die if I give these people this or get that. You take all the precautions that you can and you do all the things that you're supposed to do for prevention. But at the same time, you make sure that should you be unfortunate enough to get the infection, you will come through it. Does that make sense?
Continue delivering the food without getting worried or being stressed. So I actually caught myself into stress when you like mention things. Okay, different country, different scenarios. So we like in stage 4, and the certain things actually been restrained of doing, but distributing food wasn't actually really restrained. So I was just worried about that. Otherwise, I'm fine.
I think you should continue to deliver food.
Great.
Because you know what? If you don't deliver the food, it's going to give you a different kind of stress. You're going to feel guilty about what you could be doing to help people. And now because of your own personal fear, you're not doing it, right? Or if someone who shouldn't be out of the house had to go out of the house, look for the food, and something happens to them, you're going to have to deal with that guilt. So I think you should continue to deliver the food. I just think that you should use the appropriate precautions. And be glad that you're contributing to your community.
Thank you, Nadia. Anyone else? I see several people with their videos turned off. Would you be kind enough to turn them on? And any comments or questions, any revelations, anyone?
Well, I have a question for everyone. Does anyone think that they have gained something from this pandemic? Jayshree.
Go ahead, Irina.
You will hear me now.
You're muted, Jayshree.
I forgot, sorry. Yeah, thank you for the lovely lecture you gave. I missed out on something like wearing a mask, because I am a little bit confused. People here are saying it's not good to breathe your own carbon dioxide which you are taking out. And now, you know, you are saying you should wear mask. So I'm still confused about it.
Okay. So don't be confused. Get a mask.
I have it. I'm not wearing it.
Wear it. Wear it. It may save your life. And it
So-
will also stop you from exchanging air with someone else. So the idea, it doesn't affect your carbon dioxide at all.
Okay.
So that's part of the misinformation. So we know that air that comes out higher level of carbon dioxide, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But having a physical barrier does not stop that carbon dioxide from coming out and going out into the air. That mask that you're wearing is not, you know, it's not a vacuum. It's not completely closed. You do not need to worry about carbon dioxide. But if you're worried about the carbon dioxide, you will know when you start to have a problem. And actually, yeah, you will know when you have a problem because you'll start to feel dizzy and, you know, your blood level, acid will change and all this kind of thing. But it's just nonsense. It really is. And when, like I said, when I was in England, they were arguing that people shouldn't wear masks, and people were coming up with ideas why you should not wear masks. It doesn't look cool. It doesn't protect you. It only protects the other person. And really the reason they did that was because they knew they did not have enough masks for everybody. So then they wanted to get people out of the idea of using masks. It doesn't even make sense.
So even if you go for a walk, you should wear a mask?
I do.
Ooh.
What do you have to lose?
What about the fresh air coming out from the trees, the oxygen?
But you still get that. And if you're someone who has allergies, the mask will actually help you.
It's actually illegal to go out on the streets in Spain without a mask now.
A lot of people are coming out. 99% in Belgium, nobody's wearing mask because
Well, you would get fined €1,000 if you did that here in Spain.
Oh my God.
Yep. It's law now to wear masks.
Okay.
And the big question is, what do you have to lose by wearing one? You're talking about the fresh air, but
Yes,
we're sitting in a room right now. Do you think there's no air in there?
there
There's
is.
the air that we're breathing. The oxygen that is given by the trees, and I'm not talking about in the city, because in the city, the air is better in your house than outside, agree?
Yes.
Assume we're walking through a forest and the trees are putting all the oxygen out there. How many times a month does one get that opportunity and we still continue to live? You know, these are things that just people put out there to try and get you anxious, and don't listen to it.
Okay.
I have a
I
question.
think Beatrice had a question.
Irina had something to say.
Okay. Irina, you want to go first, then Beatrice, then Michelle?
Hope you hear me.
Yes, we do.
I was trying to reply to the previous question, if we gained during this period or not. I would say yes. For me, it was a big, how to say, it was a fantastic word that I have read it. So that is the period when we have time finally to stop, to think, to understand what we really need, and having time to improve this. So for me, it was, for me, not for me as a person living in a society, not for the citizen, or for me personally, that was a good period to do a lot of interesting and useful things.
And to think.
Of course. Before doing, we are thinking.
Good. Thank you, Irina. Beatrice?
It was only a comment when Nadu mentioned that to make plans. I thought I had a schedule before the pandemic hit us, and I was very organized. And as you know, Donna, recently retired, so I created a routine. And for me, especially, I need to be in good shape in order to keep my level of tennis. And so I had to completely redo all of my previous plan and just focus on staying active. So that helped me. But at first I was very disappointed with the way things were. But I'm slowly getting back, and Nadu gave me some good pointers there on focusing on, from here into the future. But thank you. That was a great presentation. Very helpful.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Beatrice. Michelle, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I've heard a lot of people saying, well, if we're going to social distance, then there's absolutely no need for a mask, which I personally don't agree with because, droplets and things flying around. But, I've always said that you're sort of the driver of your own situation. So if you're not comfortable going out without a mask, then you should go ahead and make sure you wear the mask, because I have friends who want to get together, but there's some who absolutely refuse to wear a mask. And they're like, well, I go out every day to the park and we're social distancing, so there's absolutely no need. And in that case, there are many of us who don't feel comfortable with that. So we're like, okay, that's your right and that's your choice. But as an individual, this is what we want to do. So I think people need to take control of that and, not just go along because everybody is saying, well, don't wear a mask. I mean, look after yourself. And from the positive side, I would say with the pandemic, Internations has been such a blessing because, it has opened up the doors to, really interacting with people around the world, people who we probably would never have met, and people who have similar interests. So that from a social standpoint has been quite helpful.
So about your first point, here's what I would say. The reason the social distancing came up with the 6 foot number is because, and in England, I guess they talk about meters. I'm not sure what the conversion is. 5 meters, 4, 3, 2.
2 meters, they say.
2 meters, okay. So that was what the scientists told people was the distance that a droplet could travel, right? So when you make recommendations in public health, you have to make them such that someone can actually live with them. Do you know what I mean? You have to be practical. So they figured, okay, 6 foot is a good distance. We can get people to be that far apart. If we told everybody to be 10 feet apart, it wouldn't happen, right? So that's where the number came from. And that's the idea of the social distancing. However, if you remember, I told you about the droplets. So if somebody sneezes, hopefully they don't sneeze so hard that that droplet can go 6 feet. But if you walk into an elevator or a room that somebody has been in, and there are moderate droplets still in the air, you are still going to be exposed to those. You see what I mean? So social distancing is just one part of what is going to keep you safe. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, people need to not be selfish about this and to understand that what you do impacts everyone else. And you wouldn't want to make anyone else sick, and you don't want anyone else to make you sick. So if I wear a mask and it offends you, you know, you might have to get over it. But at least I know that I'm doing what I need to do. And even now, you guys are in the States, you know that wearing a mask is becoming a political statement, which is ridiculous.
Thank you, Nadu. Any other questions or comments? Oh, Yolanda.
Unmute. You are on mute.
Don't forget just from a point of view, once I enter the car, I feel like removing my bra and removing the mask because it's actually very uncomfortable. Okay, for me, wearing my mask is actually very uncomfortable. Sometimes I feel like I can't breathe properly, or like I
can't hear you.
I get disconnected. Can you hear me, guys?
We can sort of hear you now, Yolanda, but
because I got disconnected. Oh, I'm back. So I was saying that how long will I keep my mask on? Because of the time I'm having my mask, I feel like sometimes draw it a little bit down and put it back again. So I'm just like, in general, how long should I keep it on?
Okay, so I understand your concerns about the mask. Actually, I wrote, one of my blogs was 10 good reasons not to wear a mask, right? So people will say it's uncomfortable. Well, guess what? I'll tell you what's uncomfortable. Having a tube stuck down your throat and being on a ventilator. So people say, I don't like the way it looks. It's not a fashion statement. It's true that it's uncomfortable, but also sometimes a lot of that is psychological. We're not used to having masks on, and just the idea that it's there, it takes a while to get used to it. But one of the things you can tell yourself is that I am doing something for my community. I am doing what's right. This is what I need to do. And that will make you feel better about it, right? When you're at home, you don't need to have a mask on. But if you're outside or you're around other people, you need to wear it. And you need to get one that's comfortable, that you can be okay with wearing on a regular basis.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, I'll send us to the breakout room and perhaps we could discuss what we've gained during the pandemic. And another topic that you might consider for the breakout room is how you will embrace the new norm. What have you gained? How will you embrace the new norm? Okay.
How long?
Yes.
How long in the break room?
I'll give us about 20 minutes and then we'll come back to the main room and say our goodbyes. Does that work? Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
Hey Donna, before you break us out, I just wanted to say thank you. I have to leave, unfortunately, but thank you, Donna, for organizing this. And Nadu, thank you so much for this talk. I enjoyed being here. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Nice meeting you all. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you too.
Enjoy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you also from my side. It was very, very interesting.
Okay, you should receive invitations to different rooms. Four, three. Okay, five. Two, three. Okay. How's the time? Hi, April. How's the time?